got myself set up already. Um, so I've got the bolster in about the middle of the mat, and I've got a blanket for the knees, which you may or may not need depending on your use of the bolster. So you don't have to use the bolster. I like to use the bolster, which takes all the pressure off my knees. So we're going to start by bringing the right foot forward into our lunge, and I've got the top of my back thigh on that bolster. If you don't use the bolster, then the blanket to pad the knee up is nice. And then I'm going to use my blocks. You can choose to use blocks or elbow on the knee, your choice. But you want that stretch going through the back of the front thigh. So the front of the back thigh, my goodness. And we're going to start by coming into this posture for 2 minutes, making sure that front knee is stacked over the front ankle, adjusting the foot if you need to, and staying nice and upright through the front of your chest so it shines forward, and at the same time trying to relax the shoulders away from the ears. There will be some tension there just to hold yourself up, but trying to do as much of that from your body as possible. Let's go ahead and take a nice long deep breath in through the nose. Open the mouth, let it all out in a big sigh. And close down the mouth. And continue to breathe in and out through the nose. And you can just gaze forwards on a drishti. You can lower your gaze, or you can even close your eyes. And just bringing attention into your breath. We've come into the posture already. We've resolved to stay here with as little fidgeting as possible, finding that level on our stretch scale of about a 4 out of 10. Remembering 0 is no sensation, 10 is pain that we don't want to go, 6 or 7 is where we go for a 30-second stretch, 4 eases off from that. You want to feel something, but something that you can hold for a reasonably long time. And to help us stay there, we come back to the breath. So because we are working the front and the back line today, we're going to be breathing in and out and imagining that circular breath that we've done multiple times before. So as you're breathing in through the nose, through to the back of the throat, down the front center line to the belly button. And as you breathe out, that breath circles between the legs and up through the tailbone, the spine, and out the crown of your head. We've already been here for 2 minutes, and so we're going to still go another 2 minutes, but we're going to go into a low dragon. So you might bring your blocks down. We're going to come down onto our elbows. If your elbows can make it all the way to the ground, awesome. Otherwise, finding a level on the blocks that makes sense for you. Still trying to keep that knee somewhat stacked over the ankle, trying to make sure it doesn't go way out sideways. So we've come into that low dragon. Try and bring length into the back of your neck so you're not poking your chin outwards, and come back to your breath. Breathing down that front line, breathing in through the nose to the back of the throat, down the front center of your torso to your belly button. And as you breathe out, allowing to circle between the legs, up the tailbone, spine, and through the crown of the head. We have about another half minute here. As you come into that circular breath, think about allowing your breath to work on softening any areas of tension you might be holding. Allow your body to surrender into that position. Take a nice long deep breath in through the nose. Open the mouth, let it all out in a big sigh. And then you can just slowly push yourself up. We're gonna go back to a downward dog just for 30 seconds or so. So you can got your bolster in the middle, that's fine. You're just going to take your hips up high. Find yourself in that downward dog. You can walk it out if you want. And once those muscles have re-energized themselves, go ahead and drop your knees back to the ground and come into any type of child's pose you like. If you want to use your bolster under your forehead, you can. If you want to remove the bolster and do a full child's pose, you can. Just go into that child's pose for about a minute. As the connective tissue resets and we prepare for the other side. When you're ready, go ahead and coming back up onto your knees and getting everything ready for the other side. So bringing that left foot forward this time, getting your blocks ready if you're using blocks, and positioning your back thigh either on the bolster or knee on a blanket. And once you've found your spot, make sure that front knee is over the front ankle. Chest is shining forwards as we plan for another 2 minutes here in this high dragon, allowing those shoulders to relax as much as possible. Come into the position. We've resolved to stay here, trying not to fidget or make unnecessary movements, knowing that you can go further into the posture or come a little bit out of it as you need to, as you travel into this pose. And then come back to your breath. Come back to that circular breath of breathing down the front line and breathing out through the back line. And maybe as you move into that sort of meditative state, you can become the observer in that fourth tenet, moving outside the body, just observing what's happening, allowing it to happen within the body, noticing if your thoughts wander, noticing if you can just stay focused on that circular breath. We've already hit that 2 minute mark. So just like the other side, we're going to come down into a low dragon, coming down onto your elbows, maybe on top of blocks, maybe to the mat, whatever makes sense for you. And once you're there, just making sure you're keeping that left knee as stacked over that ankle as much as possible, maybe even pushing a little bit down into the big toe mound so your foot's not going to the outer edge. Keep length in your low neck. Draw your chin in. And come back to that circular breath once more. Breathing and inhaling through the front line. Exhale through the back line. About 45 more seconds here. If your thoughts have started to wander, that's okay. Just observe that that's happened and come back to that circular breath. Come back to where you are on the mat right now. Take a nice long deep breath in through the nose. Open it up your mouth and let it all out in a big sigh. And then slowly you're going to come out of this posture. And once more, we're going to go to a downward dog for about 30 seconds. And then coming into a child's pose of your choice after that. So start by taking those hips high, finding that downward dog, maybe walking it out, maybe just staying in stillness. And when you're ready, dropping the knees back to the ground and finding a child's pose of your choice for about a minute. When you're ready, coming back up to your knees, keeping your props nearby, so bolsters and blocks. You're going to come to sit with your legs long in front of you. You can sit on a blanket if you like, just to get your hips up a little high. If you're on a blanket, just scoot forward on it so that it's just your sit bones that are just on the edge of that blanket. Something that can be nice and straight. We're going to do a caterpillar, which is just your seated forward fold. And you can use the bolster and do the hug of the bolster if that's what works for you. Or you can make a ramp. I just got the blocks between my ankles to prop that bolster up a little bit more. Or you can use the bolsters on top of your blocks to put your forehead onto. I might have one of each. So finding something that makes sense for you. And when you're ready, starting by just sitting up nice and straight and tall. And we're going to come into this caterpillar for 5 minutes. So it's a good long hold on this today for those hamstrings. So as you forward fold, trying to keep that back relatively straight so it doesn't collapse, but finding something that makes sense for you. And if you're not hugging your bolster, just allowing the palms of your hands to turn up towards the sky. And once again, trying to find something close to 4 out of 10 on that scale of stretch. Resolve to stay here for the full 5 minutes. And come back to your breath. As you inhale, breathe down through the front line to the belly button. And as you exhale, breathe up the back line through the spine and up through the crown of the head. Use the breath to soften and surrender the body into this posture. And we've already been here for more than a minute. So if on that scale of 1 to 10, the sensation has moved away down 3 or 2, and you want to sink a little further into the posture, you can do that. Or if you maybe got a little ambitious and went a little too far at the beginning, maybe you need to come out of it a bit. Or maybe the sensation's just still feeling just right, and this is where you need to be. After making any adjustments, just remember to come back to your breath. Come back to the circular breath of breathing down through the front line to the belly button and breathing out up the back line through the crown of the head. Apologies for the meowing cat in the background. We're already halfway through. As you soften and surrender with your breath, once again, maybe you can take that fourth tenet of Yin to become the observer and just observe what's going on in the body, allowing it to happen. Take a nice deep breath in through the nose. Open the mouth, let it all out in a big sigh. And then slowly walk your hands back up till you're sitting. Remove all your props, and we're going to come to lie down on our back in starfish or tentacle pose for a minute, just to allow the body to reset there. And then when you're ready, coming back up to sit. And we're going to prepare for our appropriately named cat pulling its tail, because that's what it sounds like my cat is doing to itself right now. So I use a bolster. You don't have to use a bolster. But what we're going to do is we're going to come down onto our left side to start. And if you're not using a bolster, you're just coming onto your elbow. But if you're coming onto the bolster, it's just sort of your rib cage being supported, hips stacked on top of each other, knees and legs. And then go ahead and straighten the legs and bring the bottom leg forward and the back leg behind. Bend the knee and see if you can grab the ankle. And that's why we use the bolster. If you're feeling flexible and this is easy, you can remove the bolster, and you can either way. If you're rolling onto your back on the bolster, you can use your hand just to prop your head, your left hand. Otherwise, you can do that all the way down on the floor, but it just depends on the flexibility of your hip flexors. And we're going to go 3 minutes doing this. So you're probably feeling a stretch down through the front of the top thigh, or the right thigh. And then just come back to your breath. So make sure that you have come to that 4 out of 10. You haven't gone too far, and you've gone far enough. And come back to breathing in through the nose, down that front line. Maybe that front line travels all the way down to the top of your right knee. And as you exhale, maybe it travels up the back of that right leg and back up through the spine, through the crown of the head. So you're extending where that circle is going. Take a nice deep breath in through the nose. Open your mouth, let it all out through the mouth. Big sigh. And then slowly just roll back onto that left side so you can bring those legs back together, stacked on top of one another. And just come over onto your hands and knees so you can sit back into a child's pose for about a minute. Again, taking your choice of child's pose. Knees together, knees wide, with or without a bolster. And just allow the connective tissue just to reset in this child's pose. And then when you're ready, coming back up. And we will prepare to do the same posture on the other side. So I'm going to switch ends of the mat. So this time we are coming down onto our right side to start. Again, with or without a bolster. If you're not on your bolster, you can just come down onto an elbow. Start with those legs stacked together and then take that bottom leg and kicking it out in front of you. And taking that back leg, bending that knee, grabbing hold of the foot. And then either coming down onto your back over the bolster or onto the mat. And if you're on the bolster, once more, supporting the head. And I'll go for another 3 minutes on this side. So just like the other side, we'll come back to that circular breath. Once you have found your position, you know you can stay here. And this time we'll extend the circle through the top of the left knee. So as you breathe in, you're breathing down the front line and down the front of that left thigh to the top of the left knee. And as you're breathing out, you're breathing up the back of that left thigh, up the spine, and through the crown of the head. And as you stay here and work on that breath, maybe you can step outside and become the observer once more. I have just discovered an easier way to support the head. If you have a block handy, you can use a block on probably the highest level to support the head as well. About 1 more minute here. Take a nice deep breath into the nose. Open the mouth, let it all out in a big sigh. And then slowly moving back onto that right side, bring the legs back to stack up on top of each other so you can push yourself up and come into a child's pose of your choice. With or without a bolster, knees wide or narrow for about a minute. And when you're ready, coming back up. And again, we can sit on a blanket. We're going to do a seated folded butterfly. So you may or may not need the blanket. I like it for my yin. And so we're going to have props ready very much like we did in caterpillar, but we'll be in our seated butterfly. So we're taking the legs to a loose diamond, soles of the feet together. And again, you can hug the bolster. You can make yourself a little ramp with the blocks at the ends of your toes so that the bolster doesn't come down on the ankles. And if the ankles do get sensitive, which I know mine do sometimes, you can also use a second blanket just to pad up underneath those bony parts of your ankles in butterfly. So once you do that and you find whatever props you want, we will come down and fold forward. And we're going to do this one for 5 minutes as well today. We're doing nice long holds today because we're working on these joints that are full of very thick connective tissue just takes a lot longer to target them and to have an effect on the tissue. So once you have found your position, whatever that might look like, go ahead and resolve to stay here for the full 5 minutes, knowing that you can sink further into the posture, pull out of it if required, but for the most part, you're not going to fidget. You're just going to be still, and you're going to use your breath to soften and surrender the body. Coming back once more to the circular breath, the one that runs down the front line to the belly button, and as you exhale, it circles between the legs, up the spine, and through the crown of the head. Use that breath to notice any areas of tension that you may be unaware that you're even holding in your body, to try and soften and relax. And we're already 2 minutes into the posture, so if you do want to sink further and make any adjustments, now is a good time to do that. And if you have made any adjustments, remember just to come back to that circular breath, breathing through the front line as you inhale and up the back line as you exhale. Maybe taking a step outside the body once more. Become that observer. Noticing if you're staying present on the mat or if those thoughts start to wander. Noticing if your body is holding any tension. Perhaps you can allow that tension to just let go and come back to that soften and surrender using your breath. Take a nice long deep breath in through the nose. Open the mouth, let it all out. And then slowly start to walk yourself out of the seated butterfly. And we're going to use the next posture as our reset posture, but it's called a deer pose. We've done it before. So if you have a blanket that you're sitting on, remove that and start by bringing your hip onto the mat, your knee out front, out in line with that right hip. And then bring the other leg so that the sole of the right foot is on top of the upper thigh of the left leg. So you're creating a pinwheel with your legs. You want your right hip is obviously on the ground, but you want that left sit bone to come as close to the ground as possible. It may not touch, mine doesn't, but it's not too far off the ground. And then you can grab a bolster and just bring it down close to that hip. And you're going to turn and twist yourself so that your torso is over that bolster and you can come down onto it so that it's supporting the whole body. You're taking your right cheek so that you're looking towards your knees. And we're going to be here for, it's a fairly restorative posture, so you may not feel a 4 at all. You might just feel very comfortable, 1 or 2. And that's fine. We're going to be here for about 3 minutes. Come back to your circular breath. Notice if you're holding any tension in the shoulders. Allow them to roll forward and sink towards the ground. Breathe down the front line to the belly button. And you breathe out the back line up the spine through the crown of the head. Take a nice deep breath in through the nose. Open the mouth, let it all out. And slowly push yourself back up to sit. And we will do the same thing on the other side. So this time you're coming down on your left hip with that left knee straight out in front of the hip and the foot coming down on the top of the opposite thigh. Bringing that bolster in by the hip. Starting in the sitting up position, getting those sit bones as close to the mat as possible. And then twisting and turning that torso, that right sit bone will lift off as you come down onto your bolster. But as long as you start in the right position, coming down onto the bolster. This time it's the left cheek to the bolster, so you're still turning and looking towards your knees. And once you've found your position, once more, just resolve to stay here and soften and surrender into this somewhat restorative posture. Coming back to that circular breath of breathing down through the front line to the belly button. And breathe out through the back line, up the spine, through the crown of the head. And as you sit in this restorative place, maybe you can become the observer and just notice what's happening in the body, allowing it to happen. Take a nice deep breath in through the nose. Open the mouth, let it all out. And slowly come to sit back up. And we're going to prepare for our sleeping swan. So setting up similar to how we did for dragon pose at the beginning of the practice, with the bolster horizontal across roughly the middle of the mat, maybe a little further back. Having blocks ready, and again, you can choose to pad your knee if you need to. And we'll start by bringing the right leg forward and then heel toeing that right foot all the way across to the left side of the mat. So you can come down and that right hip might be on the bolster. And going ahead and walking yourself down onto your elbows, maybe further, using a block to support your head. Remembering this is not our Hatha yoga class. This is our Yin Yoga class, so that bolster should take some of the sensation out of the posture versus when we're only holding it for 30 seconds. Once you've found something that you can hold for 4 minutes, resolve to stay here with as little fidgeting as possible. Come back to that breath, the circular breath that runs through the front line as you breathe in and up the back line as you breathe out. Use that breath to notice if there are any areas around your shoulders, your hips, or your butt muscles that you are unconsciously holding. Allow the breath to flow to those areas, to soften, to relax. I have been here for almost half the time. So if you need to adjust, if you need to sink further, maybe change the block height under your head, you can do that. And after any adjustments, just remembering to come back into the posture, resolve to stay here once more, come back to the breath. Take a nice deep breath in through the nose. Open your mouth, let it all out in a big sigh. And slowly walk yourself back up. And you're going to remove your props so you can come to lie down on your back and just bring your knees in towards your chest. And once you've got your knees in towards your chest, you can just take some nice little circles in one direction for 15 or 20 seconds. And then pause and go the other direction. And then when you're ready, coming back up to sit and preparing for our sleeping swan on the other side. So this time, once you've got your bolster back in place, you're going to bring your left foot forward and heel toe that foot over to the right side of the mat so the knee can come down. Position yourself on that bolster leg behind you. And then when you're ready, going ahead and walking yourself down to a position of your choice where we will stay for another 4 minutes. So once you have found your position, once more, resolve to stay here for the full amount of time and come back to your breath. Coming back to the circular breath down the front line and up the back line. Using that breath to help soften any areas of tension. Once again, just doing a quick little scan around your shoulders, your glute muscles, hips, any areas where you might be unconsciously holding tension. And using your breath to just allow that to soften. About halfway through, so once again, if you do need to make any adjustments, now is a good time. If you're not making any adjustments, maybe you're going into that more meditative state of being able to just observe what's happening in the body, allowing it to happen. And if at any point those thoughts start to wander, just come back to that breath, the circular breath. And about 1 more minute here. Take a long, deep breath in through the nose. Open the mouth, let it all out in a big sigh. And then, just like before, we're going to come up from this posture, move the prop out of the way so that you can come down onto your back and bring your knees to your chest. And once you've made it to that position, go ahead and make little circles with your knees in one direction for about 15 to 20 seconds. And then pause and go the other way. And then we'll just prepare for Shavasana. So you've got a choice of doing knees over a bolster or legs up a wall or legs on top of a couch or a chair. Your choice. And grab any layers or blankets that you may have to steal from cats. Sorry, kitty. And so if you're going legs up a wall or a chair is easier with a blanket than up a wall. And once you have found your position, and you've got your layers, you can take your arms away from the body, palms facing up, and take a nice deep breath in through the nose. Open the mouth, let it all out in a big sigh. And close down the mouth. We're going to let go of any circular breath and just come back to your normal breath, whatever that might look like for you. And then take a moment just to do a scan, mostly of the hips, the back, and your front line. And allow those specific areas to fully relax, fully relaxing from the top of your spine to your bottom of your spine. Allowing that little bend in the hips to fully relax your hip flexors, your butt muscles, all of the many muscles that surround the hips. We're really targeted today. Allow the abdominals and the hip flexors just to sink towards the ground. Allow your shoulders to melt down towards the ground as you relax that whole front line of your body, all the way back up through your throat, as you soften your face and your jaw and your tongue. Allow the space between your eyebrows at your third line, at your third eye, just to widen a little bit as you smooth out any wrinkles on your forehead. And then just take this time now to fully relax in your Shavasana for the last minute or two of the practice. Take a nice deep breath in through the nose. Open the mouth, let it all out in a big sigh. And just turn your head from one side to the other. And start to wiggle the fingers and the toes. Making some circles with the ankles and the wrists. Taking your arms up overhead, giving yourself a big stretch from your fingertips down to your toes or maybe just your tailbone, depending where those legs are. And when you're ready, bring your knees into the chest for one last hug. And rolling onto your side, allowing your lower arm to pillow your head for 1 or 2 nourishing breaths. And when you're ready, pushing yourself away from the ground, coming up to an easy seated position. Bring your hands to heart center and keeping your gaze low. And just taking a moment to thank yourself for taking time out of your weekend to look after your body and your mind and help it recover from all the activities through the practice of Yin Yoga. I thank you for sharing your practice with me today. Namaste.